Saturday morning in June, the kind where the breeze feels like a soft whisper and the sun seems to take its time rising. In a small town in Ohio, nestled between rustling cornfields and a faded old diner, a wooden house with creaking steps stood proudly on the porch with chipped paint and an American flag waving gently in the wind. Sat Grandpa Henry, a wiry, gray-bearded man in his late 70s with a voice like weathered leather. Across from him, in a pair of mismatched rocking chairs, sat his grandson's 18-year-old Luke, fresh out of high school and heading to college in the fall, and his younger brother, 15-year-old Aiden, who still carried a skateboard almost everywhere he went. Grandpa Henry had lived through wars, protests, elections, and revolutions in thought. His mind was sharp, and his heart still beat with the restless spirit of a man who believed in something bigger than himself. "Grandpa," Luke began as he set down his phone, "can I ask you something serious?" Henry grinned, taking a sip of sweet tea. "You mean more serious than whether pineapple belongs on pizza?" Luke smirked. "Yeah, more serious than that. In history class, we talked about free speech and democracy, but it feels like, I don't know, like the system we've got now isn't exactly what the founders had in mind." Aiden jumped in. Jumped in. "We were watching this documentary, and it talked about inequality, protests, people getting arrested for speaking up. I thought we were supposed to be free here, but sometimes it feels like if you speak out, especially against the government or big corporations, you're treated like a threat." Henry leaned back, letting the creak of the chair fill the moment, studied the horizon for a moment before speaking. "Well, boys," he said slowly, "you just hit the nerve of what this country's been wrestling with since the first ink hit the parchment of the Constitution. Let's start with free speech," Henry said. "It doesn't mean you can say anything anywhere without consequence. It means the government can't throw you in jail for speaking your mind, especially when you're criticizing it. That's the core. The First Amendment wasn't written to protect polite, agreeable speech. It was written to protect uncomfortable truths." But Aiden interrupted. "People are getting fired or silenced online for saying things, sometimes just opinions." Henry nodded. "It's true. But remember, the First Amendment stops the government, not private companies or social media platforms. That's a different battlefield. The real problem is when we start treating dissent like it's dangerous instead of essential." Luke leaned forward. "Why does that happen? Why are people afraid of dissent?" "Because dissent challenges power," Henry said, his voice a little firmer now. "Power likes to keep things the way they are, and those who benefit from the way things are will do a lot to protect it, sometimes quietly, sometimes brutally. That's where the idea of the deep state comes into play." "Hold up," Aiden said. "Isn't the deep state just a conspiracy theory?" Henry chuckled. "Depends on who you ask. Some folks think it's black helicopters and secret cabals. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about entrenched institutions, intelligence agencies, lobbyists, corporations that wield real power, often beyond the reach of the voter. They don't disappear when presidents change. They influence decisions, control narratives, and shape policy in ways most people never see." Luke frowned. "So you're saying democracy is an illusion?" "No, son," Henry said, pointing a finger. "I'm saying democracy is like a garden. If you don't water it, pull the weeds, and guard it from pests, it won't grow. It takes work. It takes people like you caring enough to question things, to vote, to speak up. True democracy isn't just casting a ballot every 4 years. It's holding power accountable every single day." "But Grandpa," Aiden said, "it's not just speech. It's like the game's rigged." "Cal, we were reading about wealth inequality, how a handful of billionaires have more than half the country combined. How's that fair?" Henry's face darkened. "It's not. And here's the dirty truth. The system was never perfectly fair. It was built on lofty ideals, yes, but also on slavery, displacement, and exploitation. Over time, we've moved forward, fought hard to fix some of that, but money has always had a louder voice than the average person. Campaign donations? Luke asked. Bingo. Citizens United opened the floodgates. Billionaires and corporations can pour unlimited money into politics. That's not democracy. That's oligarchy wearing red, white, and blue. So what do we do? Aiden asked. How do we fix it? Start local, Henry replied. Run for school board. Support candidates who speak the truth, not just what polls well. Refuse to be divided by culture wars designed to distract from economic injustice. And for heaven's sake, stay informed. Read, listen, question. You know, Henry said, his voice quieter, I marched with Dr. King in '63. I saw the dogs, the hoses. I saw how the government treated people who dared to say we deserve better. That right, the right to dissent, is sacred, and every generation has to defend it. But now, Luke said, they call protesters un-American. Henry's eyes narrowed. That's the oldest trick in the book. Patriotism doesn't mean agreeing with everything your country does. It means loving it enough to demand it live up to its promises. The founders themselves rebelled against their government. A day tossed tea in the harbor, remember? Dade, Grant. So, protesting is American, as apple pie. But Grandpa, Luke said, sometimes it feels like we're too far gone. Like no matter what we do, the rich will stay rich, the powerful will stay in control, and the rest of USR just along for the ride. Henry stood up slowly and walked to the edge of the porch. He looked out over the cornfields, golden under the sun. Let me tell you something, he said. I've seen a lot in my time. I've seen people rise and fall. I've seen walls built and torn down. I've seen hate march in the streets, and I've seen love outnumber it. The future isn't written yet. And you too. You've got pens in your hands. Luke looked at Aiden. So we don't give up. Henry turned and smiled. No, you organize, you vote, you speak up, you fight for a country that treats its people with dignity, that respects the voices of the unheard, that protects the weak and challenges the strong. That's what democracy is, not a finished product, but a constant fight. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the porch in a soft orange glow, the boys sat silently, letting the weight of the conversation settle. It wasn't a speech, it wasn't a lecture. It was a passing of the torch. Thanks, Grandpa, Luke said softly. Henry nodded. Just remember, the porch light's always on. And if things ever feel too heavy, come talk, we'll figure it out. And with that, the evening melted into night. Not with all the answers, but with something better. A new generation, ready to ask the